Welcome to a special solo edition of WrestleCast Radio. I don't really know what I'm going to name it or call it or anything like that. This is something that I've only done a few times. When I do my N1 review, Noah shows per their G1. But as most of you know that listen, I probably won't be doing that this year, as I am drastically dreading Noah right now. I haven't watched it in months. I don't need to see Slapjack from Retribution beat the Cowboy from NXT, and it's just not what I want in my wrestling. So, I haven't done solo shows for very long because of that. I had one maybe a few months ago, which I can't remember what I was even hyping when I did it. Otherwise, I mean, it was probably a year and a half. No, I wouldn't say that long, because last 2 years I haven't done an N1, but I did the Hiroki Goto bit. But there's just a bunch of stuff that happened over this weekend, and I feel like we needed to get this content to you. And it was some stuff that I watched in my spare time that I would never ask Alex to, one, I guess, not waste his time, but also on the other one, waste his time, because he has way more important things to do than to watch a couple things I'm going to talk about tonight. I'm a maniac, and I have a lot of free time on my hands, which I won't really dive into, but just kind of saying. But a lot of it too is because I really wanted to just kind of, even if it's a quick hitter, wanted to just talk about Joe Doering, who passed the other day, 44 years old. Longtime fans of the show, people who know us, Joe Doering was the first wrestler we had that, hey, this is Joe Doering, and I'm here from the world famous Cork and Hall, did the intro for WrestleCast, and he's always gonna have a soft spot for me because of that. He grew up Alex's neck of the woods in Illinois, trained at Border City Wrestling with Scott D'Amore, which is, explains a lot of why he went back to TNA at the end of the run here. I wasn't planning on doing Joe Doering first, and I guess it's one of those things where, I guess, as we say, sometimes hodgepodge is the best way to do things. I guess we're gonna go and do it first, and I guess it's good because I'd rather get the good and the positive out before I get into some of the other stuff. But yeah, Joe Doering died June 26th, 44 years old. Less than a year older than me, which blows my mind. Once again, Chicago, Illinois, as I said. But he's a tremendous worker, and he was somebody that really deserved more flowers than he got, if that makes sense. He started his career getting trained at the K-Man Wrestling School, which is now Border City Wrestling by Scott D'Amore. TNA was part of it too, because D'Amore was a trainer there. I think one of his first matches he ever had, and I got a cage match this, was against an old TNA guy that, ironically, we're going to be doing a Slammiversary draft in the next few days. But D-Ray 3000, if you guys remember D-Ray 3000, Border City champion, Border City Wrestling, December 19th, 2004, lost to D-Ray 3000 in his debut. So for those of you who remember that, but then ironically, they saw a lot in him. His second match he ever had was then in April. This is according to Cage Match, obviously, so you got to take it for what it's worth, little things in between. But he tags with A1, who was a guy that they brought into TNA with Team Canada, with Rude and Williams and Young. Lost to Scott D'Amore and Sean Waltman with Shane Douglas as the referee. So if that's his second match, my God, in 4 months they realized that this guy was something that might actually be something. And obviously, as we find out here too, he would become something that is a big deal, in my opinion. He's another one of those guys that I feel like went under the radar because of the company he was in. And where his mainstay was. Obviously, he had that late TNA run right before he passed. or I shouldn't say passed, but before he hung the boots up. But he was an All Japan guy, and that's where I first fell in love with him and first got to know him. 2006, after doing some of the border city stuff, he did go to Puerto Rico, work for I believe Carlos Colon at World Wrestling Council, WWC. I'm pretty sure that was Colon's promotion. If it's not, well, then I guess I am extremely wrong, but I believe that was Carlos Colon's promotion. But he got his big rub in All Japan, and he went out there, and he had a feud right away 2007 with Suwama, which, for those who know, Suwama was a big deal. Dude's like an 8-time Triple Crown champion. But then he went in his first year in there, he worked the World's Strongest Tag Determination League, which is kind of like World Tag League in New Japan. And he tagged with Keiji Muto. They went to the finals, and they beat Suwama and Satoshi Kojima to win them all. January 3rd, then 2008, which we're gonna talk these New Year's Day type shows that All Japan does a couple times here. But then January 3rd, him and Muto beat Satoshi Kojima and Taru to win the world titles. They lost right away to Minoru Suzuki and Teoke of Gurentai, because Suzuki or Keiji Muto had some kind of a conflict or scheduling or something like that. This is way before I got into it, so I'm just kind of going through that cage match or the cage match and Wikipedia on the early stuff I didn't know. He then in 2010, before he left All Japan, took on Satoshi Kojima for the Triple Crown, lost, and then he signed a development deal with the WWE. Went to Florida Championship Wrestling, was named Drake Brewer. If anybody's ever heard of that name. He did a few, a little bit here and there, and then that same year in September he left. It says he was released. I've heard otherwise, but it's neither here nor there. But then goes back to All Japan, and something that I'll say that you guys have heard me talk a lot about over the last few years, Voodoo Murderers, which was this awful stable that is still going, or was still going, at least in All Japan. He rejoins them, and he teams with Kenzo Suzuki to take on Ryota Hama. Shout out to Zeke for that one, and Suwama. Anyway, they go through that, and then he's kind of there, with All Japan until I think he ended up leaving in 2019, which was the last time that I saw him live. And I believe it's because he had brain cancer, and he had a brain tumor. February 25th of 2016 is when he was first diagnosed with it. He removed it March 4th of that year. He went under a second surgery in August of 2022. And then he had a third brain tumor in June of this last year, like seven days ago. Went in hospice, and then 3 days later he died. Not trying to jump around with all that kind of craziness, but the other stuff that wasn't, with the All Japan, that to me is always the bread and butter. And like I said, I'm jumping back and forth because I'm kind of going through, the timeline of what he was doing. He did a bunch of TNA stuff. He was in Violent by Design. After he left All Japan with Eric Young, I think they had a tag title run at one point too on there. He was in there for a while, and his last actual TNA match that he had before he stepped away, against All Odds, July 1st, 2022, he wrestled Josh Alexander for that world title. He was undefeated before it. And then he left a month later and had the brain surgery. If you read anything about Josh Alexander on social media, he talked about how he knew there was something wrong with Doering when they had their match, and he thinks Doering knew too, but he wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to have that kind of a match, which I don't blame him. You're a nutcase if you're a pro wrestler, so it makes sense to me. That previous Slammiversary, Him and Roaring were Doring and Rhino, Violent by Design, were the tag champs. They lost them to the Good Brothers. So that was kind of that tie-in that I thought of there. But the meat and potatoes of a lot of this came from him in All Japan Pro Wrestling. He was that big, bruising, Stan Hansen, like, just bruiser. And he worked a style of wrestling that I love. Like, people that know me know that, I love, like I said, with the Stan Hansen. He's in there with just big men, and they're just beating the hell out of each other. I'm gonna tie a couple recs into the posts that I make about this, so people can go back and reference things. But you look at, he had 2 runs as the All Japan Triple Crown champion. His first run went from July 27th, 2014 to, once again, 1/3/2015, then one of the New Year's Day shows, which All Japan, up until at least COVID, because 2019 when I was there, they ran the second and third 11 a.m. in Tokyo Korakuen shows, the All Japan. I don't know if the other, I think it was the New Year's Wars is what they always called it, but he had his first run, July 27th, 2014. He defeated Suwama to take his first title. He had successful defenses against Akabono. He went back to Border City Wrestling, D'Amore's company, which I brought up, where he beat Rhino. Came back then, end of October, beat Go Shiozaki. And then on that 1/3/2015 show, the New Year's Wars, he dropped the title to Go Shiozaki. It's a 5-star match. I'm going to be posting it in the description on Red Circle and in probably my social media posts too, because it is worth watching. I guarantee you it's worth watching. If you like hard-hitting type wrestling, him and Go Shiozaki beat the piss out of each other in that match. Circle back, October 21st, 2017, he defeats Suwama at the All Japan Pro Wrestling Jun Akiyama and Takeo Omori 25th anniversary show at the Yokohama Bunka, getting his second run with the title. He had a defense November 9th against Yoshitatsu he completed. February 3rd of 2018, he defeated Kai. And then he finally lost the title, his second run, at the All Japan Pro Wrestling Dream Power Series 2018, the 5th night of it, on my birthday, March 25th of 2018, to the one and only Kento Miyahara, which is a match that, if you go back to our archives, we talked highly about. But there was a match from June 2nd that year at the New Year's Wars 2018 that is an easy 5-star. It's the reason why when I went back and looked at my 2018 notes, I had Joe Doering where I had him ranked. Excuse me. But he took on Zeus at Korakuen Hall. Another just fantastic match. A great win in the middle of his last run. Another match I'll be linking. And if you don't have All Japan's streaming service, I'll have a YouTube link for the Doering Shiozaki, and I'll have a Dailymotion link for the Doering Zeus. So you guys have an easy opportunity to check it out. But this guy had a great tag run too. Like I said, 2018, he was a tag champs with Keiji Muto. 2011, he won him a second time with Kono. 2012, he won him a third time with Seiya Sanada, which obviously we know is Sanada. And then 2014, he won him again with Suwama. Or, excuse me, 2013, he won him again with Suwama, where they held him for 250 days. 249 days. He had his 2 Triple Crown runs. And he had his 2 TNA World Tag Team title runs. The one he had, obviously, the Eric Young and Diener one, and then a Diener and Rhino was Violent by Design, kind of ran that Freebird rule, which we had talked about with one of their previous matches against the Good Brothers. He was just like, he was a bad dude. I mean, he was a badass dude. If you go back and you look at some of these world's strongest determination tag leagues, as they call them, as I mentioned, 2018 or 2008, excuse me, he won it, or I thought it was 2008. 2009 maybe then. I don't know. I've already lost where I was going with it. He tagged with Taro in that one. I could have. I thought he had won a few sooner. I know they had that tag shot I mentioned, but 2012 he won Block B with Suwama. They lost in the finals to Manabu Soya and Takeo Mori. 2013, Doering and Suwama won the block over the team of Kento Miyahara and Go Shiozaki, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. You want to talk about a team, my God. Shiozaki and Miyahara in 2014 won it. Doering and Suwama took 8 points, didn't get far. Then 2015, he wasn't in the tournament. But he was a really good tag worker. But he just had this ability about him that, I mean, he had an awesome 2018 he won it with Dylan James, who unfortunately I think is canceled now. they beat out Jun Akiyama and Daisuke Sakamoto, Shuji Ishikawa and Suwama, the Violence Giants. Zeus and Bodyguard were in that one. And that led up to the 1/2/19 show on January 2nd that Zeke and I saw at Corkin Hall, where it was the Violent Giants, Suwama and Shuji Ishikawa, who defended their tag titles at Corkin Hall against Dylan James and Joe Doering, the Bomber. It was a tremendously simple but effective tag match. I had so much fun watching that. We got to see him the next night, or the next day at night 2, which was him and Dylan James, Joe Doering came out to losing it again to Ishikawa and Suwama. This time, R.I.P. at Sushi Aoki was with the Violence Giants doing the Evolution gimmick. And for those of you who know my Dragon Gate talk and what we have, Doering and James tagged with Gianni Valletta on that show, which ties that back together, which is kind of fun. But Doering was great. Doering he wasn't going to be your 5-star, every night kind of a guy that people kind of expect with a lot of the pro wrestling now, what has he done for me lately type thing. But Joe Doering was just a bruiser, just a good hand that could go in there and fill a lot of needs. But damn, he was rough. He was rough. As I mentioned, we had at the beginning, him doing our first intro, which was awesome. Me and Zeke got his shirt that I posted on it. And, we talked to him for a little bit and he asked where we were from. And, we said, oh, we're from Minnesota. And he's like, oh, hell yeah. I love the Midwest. I'm from Illinois. And, we're talking and we're getting ready to go. And he's like, hey, is there anything I can do for you guys kind of deal? And that's when Zeke, kudos to Zeke, by the way, because I'm a pussy and I didn't do anything. But Zeke was like, hey, if, could you do an intro for my friend's radio show? And he's like, hell yeah. And that's when the Joe Doering promo came in. So I'll always remember that, he did that for us. We didn't do that. We didn't go, hey, I'll buy your shirt if you do this type thing. You know what I mean? So it was cool. And we ran into him a couple days later at the Hotel Edmond Metropolitan, where we were staying in Tokyo, at the breakfast buffet that came with our hotel. And we're at the back of the line, and we kind of walked to the front of it. And the concierge, this dude was super nice. And Zeke, if you're listening, you could comment about how nice this guy was. And he's like, hello, unfortunately, the line's back there. Sorry, we're a little bit busy today, and it's probably because of Wrestle Kingdom. So there was all the extra tourism. And here we see, here comes Joe Doering walking out of the buffet. And he looks at the concierge guy, and the guy's like, oh, Mr. Doering, thank you for being here. And Joe's like, hey, those are a couple good West brothers right there. Get them in here. They need to get their food going, And the guy's like, oh, whatever you say, Mr. Doering. And, sure as shit, me and Zeke jumped the line, and, we go in, and we're walking around, and I bet you, I don't know if Zeke was, because I really didn't look back at him, but I snatched one of those mimosas or whatever off the little counter, and I had my head up like a peacock, and I was walking all excited, like, that's right, Joe Doering just put us over. How's that feel? So that was really cool. It doesn't have anything to do with any of this, but it just shows, like, in the limited times that we had interactions with the gentleman, he went above and beyond about two guys who were in Tokyo who had never been there and didn't need to spend extra time with him while he's selling merchandise. He could have been selling, gimmicks, and instead he's talking to Zeke about something because, of course, I'm over there trying to get Kento Miyahara to, let me give him a back rub. And not literally, but so just an awesome dude. And it sucks, man. That dude was fighting his ass off, and I hope him and his family are in a good spot, and I hope I just want good for good people, and I hope there's a in the afterlife. I could see somebody like Joe Doering and be like, hey, there's a good Midwest boy walking through these pearly gates, Gotta repay the favor to him, So RIP Joe Doering, 2-time Triple Crown champion, 4-time World Tag Team champion, 3-time World Strongest Determination Tag League champion. Just a treasure. So I guess that's kind of where I'm leaving it. I could have more to say about Doering if I really racked my brain, but I wanted to just kind of, I went back and watched that Zeus match and the Go Shiozaki one that I said I'm going to post in the description. But I didn't want to go back into the research. I didn't want it to sound like a script. I didn't want it to be, anything like that. And I already feel like it was that way when I was trying to read the Wikipedia and bullshit my way through things that I didn't know because I hadn't seen in my era. It's my era, as Jay would say. I just wanted to be straight up and just talk Joe Doering because dude rocked, man. Dude rocked. So rest in peace, Joe Doering. Such a privilege to have seen him met you, and I hope one more time, like I said, we can do the same thing, and I can hit you with the hey, right back at you. Going through my notes here though, real quick, let's talk about TNA Slammiversary. I say that because obviously the tie-in from Joe Doering, we're trying to keep it somewhat linear, if you will. This was the first post Tommy Dreamer show. They were reportedly 17 fans away from 3,000 here at the Agganis Arena in Boston, Massachusetts, which there is some websites and groups on Facebook and social media and other sites saying TNA outdrew Dynamite, or TNA outdrew the last time that they were in AEW was in Boston. And in my head, I'm like, you mean to tell me because their Slammiversary, their like yearly pay-per-view, that's like their anniversary show, outdrew a Collision or a Dynamite? Kick rocks, people. I'm so sick of attendance talk. I'm so sick of turnstiles talk. Every company inflates. So if somebody is going to pick on a company for doing I'm doing air quotes, the turnstile numbers were this, or the ticket sales were this. Okay, well, then I need you to go through and nitpick every single company over the last 50 years because they've all done it. So to the shows that do that, stop. You're annoying me, and it doesn't make sense. And nobody cares either. I don't understand why people are reaching for clicks with this almost 3,000 attendance saying they outdrew the last time AEW was in Boston. Okay, fantastic. If you want to play that route, then you can say, well, AEW outdrew WWE the last time they were in England, or for one of their big it's stupid. Like it's just enjoy what you're watching. You don't know any of these people that went to the show. It doesn't affect you how many people are at the show. And the quality of the wrestling, minus something me and Alex are going to talk about on on WrestleCast, I believe Thursday from Forbidden Door. Doesn't matter how many people are there. Just shut up and watch the wrestling and find other things to nitpick. Nitpick how bad some stuff is or how good stuff is, not what a promoter who's in a business about lying. You know what I'm saying? Like, sorry, I don't mean to go on this rant, but it just drives me nuts because it's like, oh my God, congratulations, Slammiversary, which is supposed to be your WrestleMania or SummerSlam past, what WWE would consider like main event or like jacked back in the day. Like, congratulations, that doesn't make you better. That means you had to put all those resources in to beat like a B show. Doesn't make you better. And before Tommy Dreamer left, it definitely didn't make you better. But I can tell you, without Tommy Dreamer there, I don't know who was running them, if it was Delirious doing all the bookings or who was doing what. But right off the bat, X Division Ultimate Title match, and this is Slammiversary, by the way, we're talking about from the 28th on Sunday, so 2 days ago. It was Cedric Alexander, Amazing Red, Fabian Eichner, Frankie Kazarian, Casey Navarro, Leon Slater, and Mr. Elegance, Ultimate X. We're down to Slater and Red fighting over the title, hanging from the X. Slater pulls it away from Red, and as it dangles, Cedric Alexander comes out of nowhere, tackles the belt, and wins it back. And I went, oh my God, that was a competent finish. I don't think I've seen that since before they've joined AMC. So I saw that, and I decided I guess I would stick around with the show. I don't have many thoughts on the show because it doesn't mean it was good, but I enjoyed that finish. But, we'll do a quick run through here. We had Elijah, formerly Elias, defeats AJ Francis, whatever. Demon Bunny defeat the Elegance brand for a World Knockouts tag title match. It was fine. This was okay. TNA International title, Mustafa Ali, Rich Swann, and the Yuha Nation, formerly Apollo Crews, had a pretty good 4-star 3-way match. Ali, Swann, and Nation did a lot of really good spots. They had a really good finish with Mustafa pinning, I believe it was Rich Swann, with a nice little roll-up cradle. At one point, Swann ran off of Yuha Nation's back, landed on Mustafa Ali with a DDT, spun him for a 360 tornado, and DDT'd him back onto Yuha Nation. So that was kind of a cool-ass little spot. We then go to Moose versus Eddie Edwards, which the minute they showed Moose's son and wife in the crowd, I knew, and Alicia Edwards and the JDC, Fandango or Johnny Damn Curtis, whatever, had towels in their hand. We knew it would involve having to throw towels in. Alicia Edwards tossed the towel in for her husband, only to get speared through a table with her husband. Sure. But it was fine. It wasn't awful, but it was whatever. We then saw Zaya Brookside defeat Lei Ying Li in their Knockouts feud that involves, as I have said, the worst promo I have seen in my life from a few weeks ago. This match was not very good either, but nonetheless, Zaya Brookside's new Knockout champions. Get into it. Then we had a 4-way ladder match. The Broken Hardys, who are now Brother Nero and Matt Hardy because of the way the Righteous put flowers into Jeff Hardy's mouth. And now I can't believe I'm talking about this because I just said that. They defeated the Bear Bronson and Brian Myers of the System. The Righteous, who I obviously mentioned. The System were the tag champs going into this. And then the Great Hands, who are with Mustafa Ali, Jason Hotch, and John Schuyler. This was the longest match of the show, probably because there was a lot of setting up things, but was what it was. The Hardy Boys win the titles. And then in your main event, in a clear as day, Mike Santana is leaving the company. He drops the TNA World title to the former Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth. So TNA had a couple fun matches, but they got a lot of work to do to repair any sort of relationship that they may have with the wrestling world, with how bad Tommy Dreamer's bookings have been and what he had been doing with that show. I hope the best. I'd rather see companies succeed than fail, because I would much rather talk about positivity than negativity. But that was your Slammiversary. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm assuming this means that we will be seeing Mike Santana soon in NXT. Before we go to the NXT route and the WWE route, I did want to bring up something that I had kind of been talking to people about during the Vegas WrestleMania weekend this last time, where abruptly on the Despy, I believe it was the Despy Produce show, Fuminori Abe worked Zack Sabre Jr. on it. And it was a 5-star match, in my opinion. It's probably going on my match of the year. Y'all know how much I love Takuya Nomura, Fuminori Abe, the Astronauts. We know that Takuya Nomura, it's been 10 months since he's wrestled. Apparently he's been having kidney failure. There's not a lot out there, so there's not a lot to kind of bring up about it. But Abe was doing a lot of talk that his match with Zack Sabre was essentially an audition, a tryout. I didn't really bring a lot of it up because I had heard from people that were in Vegas that had talked to Abe, getting autographs and just asking him about it, that he was the one bringing it up himself, if you will, saying, "Oh, this is my tryout. Should be going to New Japan. Hopefully." We obviously know the Dragon Dia talk. I've always said he's going to be the next Tiger Mask. There's the Shun Skywalker speculation. There's a few DDT, Just Tap Out, All Japan, and a couple other companies that I won't mention that have some of their other younger talents that went to New Japan or have done things with New Japan that have been rumored to. And if you want to find those names, you can really go ahead and find them. I'm not big. I don't know enough about those names, so I don't want to speculate or bring them up. I did tonight, because the Abe thing had gotten a little more steam. I had spoken to a gentleman some people may know on this show, Joe Lanza. He's from the Voices of Wrestling Network. We talked a little bit on Discord, and I kind of asked him, I said, "Hey, I know you had heard the same thing about Abe telling people about New Japan." And I asked him, I said, with it getting steam, have you happened to hear anything of Takuya Nomura being unknown, if he's ever even going to be allowed to wrestle again, added more fuel to why Abe would jump ship and ditch the Astronauts, if you will. He kind of said the same thing. I can't confirm New Japan. I only know the same thing that you had heard about Abe telling people he's considered it. He doesn't know his thought process or anything like that, but that was somebody that I trust in the media. So I wanted to just kind of run it through him before I came on here. And I know he's brought it up. And if you follow the Voice Wrestling Patreon, there's a piece of audio tonight where he does mention Abe. I won't say anymore because, it's behind a paywall. I'm not going to ruin that for people, but still nothing on as to why, but I feel more comfortable talking about it. And that's why I'm doing it now. That maybe Abe is going to jump ship, especially now that we're seeing, it's been 10 months since Nomura has wrestled, and the kidney stuff may be getting worse. And maybe that's why New Japan's getting a little more open with their recruiting process. So I'll kind of just leave it at that. But I had mentioned that before to some people, and I just wanted to bring it up. And I think if they can bag Dragon Dia and Fuminori Abe and Shun Skywalker, those are 3 extremely cognizant pieces that could boost their junior division. I don't want to say Shun Skywalker's a junior, but if you compare him to the roster, he kind of sizes as a junior. And they did bring in Shingo when he came in from Dragon Gate as a junior, and didn't move him to heavyweight until they did Will Ospreay. So I could see maybe Shun coming in at first and doing the junior run. But hopefully we'll get more to come of that. Kobe World is coming up soon. We know, I believe it's next week, we're going to get KZ and El Cielo to find out who's going to Kobe World. Also, next week on the 7th, we get the 2 other play-in matches where hopefully we see Ryohei Oiwa and Oscar make it in, and we don't get huge Yujiro Takahashi, and I can't remember who Oiwa's wrestling. Doesn't matter. ELP, I think it is, make the tournament. I could be wrong about that, but whatever. I want the grip in there. But maybe we'll start seeing some more tread on this Abe thing. And he's working. Another thing I was going to say that makes me kind of think about it too is if you go to myaew.com, they're hosting, it's $15. I think it's July 19th or something like that. But Jonathan Gresham's doing a produce show on MyAEW's website. Excuse me. And he's wrestling Fuminori Abe on that show. So that's another thing that made me really want to start digging into this Abe thing. Because I tell you what, if Abe goes to New Japan, I'll be damned. You'll get me back into those juniors that I've lost investment in. So wanted to bring that up too as kind of a last little bit here. 2 topics left I want to talk about. One being the STARDOM The Convergence show, which I thought was an incredible show. And let's go into that. Let's just go into that now, and then we'll end on the speculation, negativity, frustration note, I guess. STARDOM The conversion from the 27th, just a few days ago. 11-match show. I have 2 matches that I went 5 stars that are going to vie for a spot on my match of the year list. They were tremendous. We also had an incredible 4-way on the show. I am going to, because the show is only 3 days old, and because it's not on STARDOM World yet, and especially because I know there's people that I value their opinions who haven't seen this yet and haven't been spoiled, I'm going to just kind of run through the card and give you my match my match rating, but I'm not going to give you the finishes or the winners because I want to have people still have an opportunity to watch it. But if there's somebody who doesn't have time to watch the entire show, it's about a 4-hour show, you can kind of take these ratings and pick and choose what you want to watch. If you're able to go find nefariously a different means to watch it, if you're going to go on and pay for the pay-per-view, which I think was about $40 American. $35 American, which isn't terrible. It was 4,400 yen. Or if you're going to wait it out for STARDOM World. But nonetheless, I'll at least give you ratings and matches so you can kind of pick and choose what your thoughts are. You can tell me if I'm crazy or not. Opener, and this isn't counting pre-show, I believe, because I watched it as one file. But we had Motoi Hamabe against Yunami Zamori. I went 2.5. May Sierra versus Emma Maishima went 2 1/4, which disappointed me because I really like May Sierra. We then had Aya Sakura taking on Ane Kanaya, 2 3/4. God, then we had Koguma, who I cannot stand Koguma and her stupid bear ears. Koguma, Maika, and Kyoka Kotatsu and Rana Yagami from God's Eye against Mavita Loca's God's Eye was a tag team, and Mavita Loca, Akira Kurogane, and Itsuki Aoki, another 2 1/4. 6-woman tag. I believe this was for the trios titles. We had God's Eyes, Amesore, Hina, and Lady C against Kyoko, Furusawa, Maki Ito, and Rion. Went 3.5. That was a lot of fun. We then had an 8-woman tag, Cosmic Angels, Natsupoi, and Saori No. We loved her on the show. Fuwa-chan and Hazuki took on Hates, Azusa Inaba, Fukikan Death, Natsuko Tora, and the violent freezer herself, Ruaka. Went 3 stars on that. And then in Xena's, one of her last matches before she leaves STARDOM off of Excursion, goes back, I believe, to Australia. Xena took on Hanako, went 3 1/4 on that. Then in an awesome tag, 8-woman tag. I went 4.5 on this. This is where the notebook kicked in. We had Neo Genesis, Azumi, Miyu Amasaki, Starlight Kid, and then the non-united Utami Hayashishita took on Hates, B. Priestley, Koname, Momo Watanabe, and Saya Kamitani. Tremendous match on that. Then we had, this was one of my 5-star matches. This is the epitome of dumb jock wrestling. If you want violence and just stiffness, we had Sayori defending the IWGP Women's title against Rina Yamashita. Semi-main event, Hanan defended the white belt against Saya Ida. I went 4-star notebook. And in the main event, the red belt champion Sayaka Kurara, the super rookie who defeated Sayakami for that title back at Dream Queendom, or All-Star Queendom in April, takes on Suzu Suzuki, who I've been a super mark of back a couple of years ago with her, Maya Yukihi, Rina Nimashita, and Natsu Sumiri of Prominence. But I went the full 5 on it. Just a fantastic match. This show delivered. This is going to be a show of the year candidate. We will get into it next time. I would love to give Alex the opportunity to watch it so we can banter back and forth together and I want to get his thoughts on it. But yeah, Final 4 stretch felt like a Wrestle Kingdom. Stardom continuing to hit on all cylinders. They're still, you could argue, the best company in Japan. They lose one and it's man down, next one up. I mean, it's tremendous. Seeing Utami back was super nice too. So good for Stardom with that. And then the last thing I want to talk about before we close out this kind of shorter audio, as I said, that I'm doing tonight. Excuse me. Oh my God, I thought I was going to sneeze. The WWE, which is a company we don't talk about a lot anymore. And as I said earlier, I have time on my hands and I wanted to just indulge what I can. I watched Night of Champions. And while it wasn't necessarily like an awful card, at the same time, it was a card where you're just like, all right, cool, glad that happened. It was fine. But then there's so many questions that start kicking in with some of these decisions. So I went into this thinking we were, this was me before the pay-per-view. I said, Jey Uso is going to beat Obafemi, which he shouldn't. And then he's going to go wrestle Cody, who will win in the main event at SummerSlam. It frees up Obafemi to wrestle Brock. Everything makes sense. Obafemi wins. I gave it 3 stars, but in the opening match, he defeats Jey Uso. And I'm super excited. Like, I am glad that they had the right guy win. Jey Uso is not good. He's tired by his entrance. It's like watching Ultimate Warrior. And he doesn't know how to put together a match by himself. So having Obafemi wins, who they have the rocket strapped on his back, was the right move. And for once, they did the right thing. So kudos to them, 3 stars. We then get Io Sky defeating Liv Morgan to win the Queen of the Ring. I went 2 3/4. Whatever. I guess, I don't know, maybe I don't know what they're going to do. It doesn't matter. But Io Sky wins, so at least excuse me, what am I talking about? She then said she's challenging Liv Morgan for her title at SummerSlam. So they're already going to have that rematch, which I'm assuming Morgan will win to get back the 50-50 booking. So Io Sky wins the Queen, challenges Liv Morgan, probably because Ripley's still injured and they don't know if they're going to have her for the pay-per-view for SummerSlam. So makes sense. They didn't do it with Obafemi though. He didn't announce anybody. And we'll get into that in a minute. Then Seth Rollins defeats Braun Breaker in a cage match where they did all the normal tropes. I went 2 1/4. It was fine. Whatever. Next. I'm never going to go back and watch it. Trick Williams successfully retains the U.S. title against Ricky Saints. I went 2.5. Williams with the trick shot. Fantastic, whatever. It was what it was. Tiffany Stratton defeats Jade Cargill to retain the U.S. title, which she should have never won from Julia. This was a 2-star special. They did things they're doing. At one point at the early stages of the match, Jade Cargill literally does Obafemi's finish, the pop-up Razor's Edge sit-out Liger Bomb. It's almost a Splash Mountain. To Tiffany Stratton, who kicks out at 2. So she literally, nobody with how produced these shows are, told her, hey, you're doing Oba's finish. Or she just decided to do it and doesn't pay attention to the product and doesn't even know that the biggest guy they're trying to push, she did her move for a barely 2 count. Not even a falsie. So at that point, continuity left my mind altogether, and I said, forget this match. It's 2 stars, whatever. Move on. Main event, Sami Zayn with a roll-up wins the world title against Cody Rhodes and Gunther. I had said to Alex that I feel like this company, if it's not going to be Cody J. Uso, if you're trying to pop the crowd, they're going to put the title on Sami 4 years too late, 3 years too late. Sure as shit, he does. And that's what begins to lead me to the final thing I want to talk about, and that is just what the hell is going on with this company. You tease the night after Mania, CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, and then Punk goes on hiatus. So you're thinking, okay, we're going to get Punk and Cody at SummerSlam. Well, now Sami Zayn is champion. Do they hotshot the belt 5 days later back onto Cody this Friday, and then have the Look Into My Eyes play over the loudspeaker as Punk makes his return? Very good possibility that happens. Very, very good possibility that happens. Because Obafemi, we now found out tonight on Raw, has decided to push his... God, I can't believe I'm saying this. He's going to delay his SummerSlam world title match he was supposed to get to a later show, because instead he'd rather wrestle Brock Lesnar. There was a story Bully Ray pitched, which was the most competent thing I've ever heard him say, and Alex definitely can vouch for it because he put it over probably harder than I did, where Bully Ray on Busted Open said, hey, have Obafemi beat Brock in night 1, and then he goes and beats Roman night 2. Makes a lot of sense. You make a new star, you build a new star. Nope, instead we're going to get him and Brock in a Hell in a Cell. And he is delaying his title match that he earned to a later time. Stupid. So now, to me, that opens the door for Cody and Sami Zayn to have a rematch. And then we also found out on Raw tonight that Seth Rollins, out of nowhere, has decided to challenge Roman Reigns for the title at SummerSlam. The caveat in the promo was, you have never beaten me, Roman Reigns. If you go on Cage Match and look, back in 2018, I think it was 2017, on a Monday Night Raw, Roman Reigns beat Seth Rollins clean. So this company already doesn't even remember their own history, or they assume, as we say, that we're all idiots. And they know we'll never forget, we'll never have remembered that. I immediately said, this is why this company sucks, and I don't know why I even try with them anymore. We've already seen this match. Both guys have already beat each other. I don't care about Rollins versus Reigns either. This now makes me tie in and go, what the hell is going on with CM Punk? I know that the gentleman who posted the initial comment about Punk being asked to take a pay cut and Punk threatening to walk out or ask for his release because of the way his wife was booked against Becky Lynch losing the title. I think a lot of that is kind of far-fetched. But at the same time, when you follow CM Punk's track record, which is something I do because, contrary to belief, I do really like CM Punk. I am a big CM Punk fan. When me and Alex went to Chicago for his return match, I left our seats to buy me and Alex the limited edition CM Punk shirts. I thought it was worth having because of how much I know Alex likes him too. And we'll chat more on this Thursday because I want to get Alex's take on this, especially as, from where he may come from. And I don't blame him. But at the same time, it's really, really making me wonder how much of these rumors are true that he asked to get a pay cut, or he really did threaten to leave the company because of his wife, or he burnt another bridge just like he's done in every single company he's came from. Kevin Nash had recently been posting a video talking about when he was supposed to beat CM Punk, and Triple H pulled him aside and said, "You're not beating Punk anymore. I'm going to beat him." Because Punk said that his balls are in his wife's purse. Oh my God, he cut a promo on you, Triple H. Lighten up. How are you supposed to be the be-all, end-all about wrestling, and then when one of the best talkers in the history of the business cuts a great line on you, you're going to sit there and go wham, wham, cry, cry about it? I'll bury you with my power. So I've been in the caveat that ever since Punk has come back to this company, it's been Triple H pushing his buttons and trying to find how many ways he can get him to crack. And then he can just tell everybody, well, we brought him back for the fans, but as we said, he's just not a company man. Like, I'm waiting for that to happen. I feel like he is too. And I joked with Alex today that Jack Perry, who still doesn't have a new contract, he's going to show up on WWE, and Triple H is going to take that mark picture with the two of them and be like, cry me a river. And then it's going to be Punk and Perry. But at the same time, I hope Punk goes, you know what? I have had enough of this. And he does walk. And he's like, this stuff sucks. I would rather Punk walk away and enjoy the rest of his life than get involved in some of these storylines that they're starting to play. I understand him and Cody would be fun. It would be fine. But if I remember the last time they were in the ring together, it wasn't very good. And Punk is not what he used to be. It's father time, man. It just is what it is. He recently had done play-by-play on a UFC show, not a UFC show, but like a smaller MMA fighting company that he does play-by-play for. I think it was on the UFC network. And they were talking about the next show, and they're like, Punk, you going to join us for commentary next show? And he's like, I don't know, is it on a Friday? Because I guess I got to work Fridays now. So he's like already taking shots of having to work SmackDown for this Cody Rhodes thing. So I don't know. I'm starting to think that there's more smoke to the fire, or there's more fire to the smoke, or whatever the analogy is, that now that they belted up Sami Zayn to presumably lose it back to Cody because you're buying time for Punk. If Cody beats Sami on Friday, then maybe I would believe it's all a work, and then Punk shows up and it gives him 3-4 weeks to build the show. That would be great. I'd be fine with that. It would I would give it a shot. I would definitely give it a shot. But at the same time, if you look, I don't know, man. Things are weird. Things just feel really weird. And I mean, do they really want to have Zayn Cody this Friday after this Wednesday they're doing MJF and Mark Briscoe? I mean, do you really want to be called the copycats? Do you really want to be? I mean, we already found out that during All In at the end of August, the same day as All In, WWE is running a same venue doubleheader between AAA and NXT. So they're double counter programming All In. So I don't know what they're thinking. But at the end of the day, we now know Roman Reigns is Obafemi's stepping aside to face Brock. We know Sami Zayn is the champion, and I'm presuming faces Cody, but now we know Seth Rollins, God, has come out at the end of Raw and challenged Roman to face him at SummerSlam for that title. And my God, Roman's talking about how, it's the last thing he's got to do. And, they eventually start conveying, I don't remember who said it, and it doesn't matter, but you can't beat Seth Rollins. That's the one thing that you haven't done and you can't do. Well, if you go on Cage Match, you can see in 2017, Roman Reigns cleanly beat Seth Rollins on a Monday Night Raw. So this company already assumes that we're all dopes and idiots because there's documented and video footage that Roman's pinned him like numerous times. But you're now trying to portray Hogan Warrior from Halloween Havoc of, you've never beaten me, and I will make sure it never happens. Like, you're already selling the story, and you're selling it bad. And if that's what you're doing with Roman, he's locked in, which to me locks Punk out even more if this Zayn Cody thing goes past this Friday. If Cody wrestles him on Friday, they make it for the title, or next Friday they make it for the title and he beats Zayn, then I can understand you bringing back Punk to get the huge pop, and you can do Punk Cody at SummerSlam. But I'm just saying, something doesn't math. The math ain't mathin'. And I really hate to always be the guy, especially as a fan, who rides hard against CM Punk because it's so frustrating that he just can't act right. He reminds me of like Judy Browning from The Ultimate Fighter, or Julian Lane, who's like, let me bang, man. Those guys who are just super emotional about their beliefs that they're better than everything. Brother, don't burn another bridge, because if you burn this bridge, the next thing you're going to have to swallow isn't apologizing to Saudi Arabia. It's going to be having to take that stupid fucking Mark photo with Triple H with Jack Perry next to him. And like I said, it says, cry me a river, sir. And it's Triple H, Jack Perry, and CM Punk in the same photo. And if that happens and you're all bird's eyes and bees and flowers and you're smiling all happy taking that Mark photo, maybe your balls are in Stephanie McMahon's purse. But I hope I'm wrong. Pepsi Phil, prove me wrong, brother. But I thank y'all for listening to me here. I just, once again, want to drop some quick audio here. In the next couple of days, we have a Slammiversary, 2 Slammiversaries drafts coming out. We have our AEW Forbidden Door draft coming. And as we get into July, we'll begin our SummerSlam drafts. There's been 41 of them if you count the 2 Minnesota shows. We're going to break them like the WrestleManias into groups of 10. And for our 90s one, which will probably be our initial one, we have a couple special guests that have never done a podcast who are bigger deals in the wrestling world than any of us are. And it'll be a lot of fun getting them on here. So there's a couple people that it's going to be interesting to see how they draft and to hear their mindset when it comes to wrestling booking. But I'll leave it at that to avoid any sorts of spoilers. And then hopefully we'll be back to, I believe, on Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, where we're going to review Forbidden Door, which AEW continues to knock it out. This show has my match of the year on it, and I am proud to say it because there's people that hate it and there's people that love this match, and I am on that side that'll fight to the end and that I love it. But we'll get into that. Like I said, we'll get into Alex if he has any thoughts on the CM Punk craziness going on. There's another WWE topic that I just didn't get enough research in tonight. That I'd kind of bounced off of him earlier in the day that I didn't want to bring up because I'm not 100% confident on it, but we'll get into that soon, I promise. And we got the G1 coming up. Maybe we'll give it a little more time. But it was fun. I was glad to just shoot the shit with everybody. Once again, I'm going to get those links out with the show here of the Joe Doering, Go Shiozaki, and Joe Doering Zeus matches from the New Year's 2015 and 2018 shows. I highly recommend taking an hour out of your day and watching the 2 matches. Both tremendous, and they'll show you the epitome of what Joe Doering was and why he was so great at his profession. Appreciate y'all. ProWrestlingTees.com/WrestleCast. Get yourself a t-shirt. Shout out to the people who just bought one of our adult smalls in the Wrestle Draft shirt. I won't say names, but obviously you're probably listening, so thank you for doing that. And I hope it does you right. That being said, say goodnight, Ryan.